Welcome or welcome back to God is Alive. My name is Serena, and here I speak all about what it truly means to have a personal relationship with God. We have faith every day that we'll wake up tomorrow, so I want to start a fire in your heart to stop chasing the temporary things of this world and to put that same faith in God. So let's learn about God and learn to lean on God, because what's the worst that could happen? Welcome back to God is Alive. My name is Serena, and today I'm speaking about who were the wise men, the Magi. Who were they? What was the star that they followed? I'm going to get into everything. I had so many questions about them for so long, and I spent hours researching it, and I could tell you everything we know about them, everything we know about the star, and it's actually a lot more than I ever thought it was. So, who were they? So the Magi, the term Magi, comes from the Greek word Magoi, M-A-G-O-I. So this refers to a class of priests and scholars from Persia, Babylonia, or Media. We know for a fact that Magi studied astrology, dreams, and religious texts. So Matthew chapter 2 verse 1 says that they came from the east. This suggests Babylon, Persia, or Arabia. So they were likely influenced by Jewish teachings. And we know that because many Jews lived in Babylon and Persia after the exile mentioned in the Old Testament. Daniel chapter 2 verse 48 specifically mentions Magi, and they were around. So how do they know about a coming Jewish king? Well, that's from the prophecies, like Numbers chapter 24 verse 17, which speaks of a star rising from Jacob. Many other prophecies obviously talked about a coming Messiah. One misconception I wanted to talk about is the Bible never says that there were three of them. Three wise men, yada yada. No, the Bible only says that they brought three gifts: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. That's Matthew chapter 2 verse 11, and we'll get to that later because those gifts have more meanings than I ever thought as well. So, before we move on, I'm just going to take a second to explain how we know who Magi were and what they did. This is because we have Greek and Roman historians who even wrote about Persia and its customs, such as the Magi. So we've got, I'm probably going to butcher their names, Herodotus, Strabo, and Pliny, P-L-I-N-Y. I'm pretty sure I had to learn about him in my religion courses. Pliny the Elder. So these were all historians who wrote about Magi, because there were a good amount of them. And they basically wrote that there was a priestly caste system who specialized in astrology, dream interpretation, and religious rituals. So we kind of know what the Magi did and why they would have noticed a star in the sky due to these historical records. Strabo, the Greek geographer, actually specifically mentions that Magi were responsible for interpreting celestial signs, which would make sense if they saw a star. What star? I'm going to get into that. So now that we know that the wise men were experts in divination and astronomy, I'm just going to quickly read the text. I'm going to use Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 through 2. It says, "The visit of the wise men. Now after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, 'Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star when it rose, and we have come to worship him.'" So what star did they see? This is what I wanted to know. So I did a whole bunch of research, and I'm pretty sure, I'm 98% sure that this is what it was, and I'll explain why. So around 2 to 3 BC, Jupiter and Venus came so close together in the sky that it appeared as a single bright star. This is what's known as the Jupiter-Venus conjunction. Now, this was significant for them because in ancient astrology, the planet Jupiter was associated with kingship. It was known as the king planet. Venus, on the other hand, was associated with birth and fertility. It was the planet of fertility. So their conjunction would have been interpreted as the birth of a great king, but that's not all. So 3 times between September 3rd BC and May 2nd BC, Jupiter passed by the Regalis. So it's spelled Regulus. This was the main star, the brightest star in the constellation Leo. The constellation Leo was associated with a lion. And to the Jewish people, out of all the 12 tribes of Judah, out of all the 12 tribes of Israel, Judah was symbolized by a lion. The Magi, who were astrologers, would have seen this sign as a new king being born from the tribe of Judah. This stems all the way back to the book of Genesis, when Jacob was blessing his 12 sons, who ended up being the 12 tribes of Israel. He says to Judah in Genesis chapter 49, verses 9 through 10, Judah is a lion's cub. From the prey, my son, you have gone up. He stooped down, he crouched as a lion, and as a lioness, who dares to rouse him? The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until tribute comes to him, and to him shall be the obedience of the peoples. So what this means is, number 1, Judah is compared to a lion. This symbolized power, kingship, and dominance. The scepter refers to royal authority, meaning kings would come from Judah. And so the Magi, who were trained in ancient astrology, would have seen this Venus-Jupiter conjunction in the constellation Leo as a king to be born from the tribe of Judah. But that's not all. In Matthew chapter 2, verse 9, it says, the star they had seen when it rose went ahead of them and stopped over the place where the child was. So I thought to myself, how can a star stop? Let me research some more. Basically, figure it out. On December 25th, 2 BC, Jupiter went into retrograde motion directly over what would have been to them Bethlehem, viewed from Jerusalem. So when a planet goes into retrograde motion, it appears to pause in the sky due to the Earth's movement and rotation. So this is important because the Magi had traveled to Jerusalem first, as described in Matthew chapter 2, verse 1, where they met King Herod. After learning from the Jewish scholars that the Messiah was to be born in Bethlehem, which was all the way back in the Old Testament prophesied by Micah chapter 5, verse 2, they continued south. That's when Jupiter went into retrograde motion, and they would have interpreted that as a heavenly confirmation. The role of Jupiter stopping would have matched Matthew's description of the star stopping over Bethlehem. And this also lines up with what would have been Jesus' birth. But I'm not going to get into that because I don't want to bore you. What I will get into are the gifts. When the Magi came, they brought gifts. And I always overlooked this verse, but it has such a deeper meaning than I originally thought. So they brought gold. Gold was actually a gift fit for a king, symbolizing royalty, authority, and divine kingship. Gold was typically presented to a king as a sign of honor and submission. So they were basically saying, Jesus, our king, even though he was a mere little child. They also gave him frankincense, which I literally put that on my face, so I don't know, how you're going to feel about that, but Back then, it was used in temple worship, and it emphasized that the Magi were worshiping him, and they recognized that Jesus was a divine, priestly character. So by them giving him frankincense, it's basically saying, we worship you. And the last one, which is the most shocking one, was they gifted him myrrh, myrrh. This spice was used for embalming and burial preparation in Jewish and ancient customs. And the Bible even confirms this, like in John chapter 19, verses 39 through 40. After Jesus had died, it says Nicodemus, also who earlier had come to Jesus by night, came bringing a mixture of myrrh and aloes, about 75 pounds in weight. So they took the body of Jesus and bound it in linen cloths with the spices, as is the burial custom of the Jews. Meaning, the Magi not only knew that he was a king, that he was worth worshiping, but the Magi knew that he was gonna be the sacrificial lamb, the sacrificial king, God and Savior. The Magi's gift of myrrh was so deeply symbolic. It was foreshadowing Jesus's whole mission here as the Messiah, not just as a king, the gold, or a priest, frankincense, but as the suffering servant who would die for humanity's sins and make us right with God. They knew that he came here to die. It even says in the Old Testament, Isaiah 53 verse 5, the prophecy of the suffering Messiah, Isaiah writes, "But he was pierced for our transgressions, he was crushed for our iniquities. Upon him was the chastisement that brought us peace, and with his wounds we are healed." It's Jesus' death that paid our price. It's his suffering and his death that paid our price. And the wise men knew it. So I really hope that I could explain this well, and that I gave you a deeper meaning into the Magi and what their gifts were, because how are you supposed to know? We are not ancient Jews. We don't know the traditions. So today's song of the day is God of Miracles by Josiah Queen. And if you have any song recommendations, please let me know in the comments. I try to give a variety of different artists, but I can't lie, I have some favorites. Thank you so much for tuning into today's podcast. And as always, I cannot wait to talk to you again next time.